You're listening to Abundance Hack Podcast, where we talk about alchemy, transmuting life's challenges into gold. We talk about embodiment, being all of who we are in our fullness and not shrinking for the comfort of others. That is living an abundant life. Hey lovers, welcome to the Abundance Hack Show. Today I have an awesome guest. It's Nikhil, and he is going to talk about shadow work for men. So I'll give you a little background and then I'll let him introduce himself. So I was on Facebook and there was a group and he posted something about a men's group, and I'm like, ooh, tell me more, because I just did that episode, Shadow Work for Men. So I wanted to learn more about the men's group that he attended and why he attended, his thoughts after, and some of the things that men are struggling with today. So I have him here at the studio, and I'm super excited that you're here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I guess the healing process started early for me. I think some people, they grow up with a perfect childhood. They're the homecoming queen. They get a job right out of college, which is awesome. And then like age 28 or something, alcoholism shows up or something horrible happens, and then they're kind of facing their shadow. I had to face my shadow very early in life. I had a parent and my mother and her parents, my mother and my grandparents were pretty mentally abusive, even at the point of like being physically abusive when I was as young as 5. Yeah, so, and I've heard far worse stories, far worse childhood stories. But, so I was shaken up pretty early in life and going through a lot of pain really early, and I think when you're traumatized early in life, there's a lot of confusion. So I just wanted to find clarity. I wanted to figure out who I am, what I am, what I have to serve. I wanted to just basically get through layers of just pain and confusion.
You said that most people have a perfect childhood. I think we're learning that a lot of people have more trauma than they realize in their childhood. Even if it's not physical abuse, I think we're learning that emotional abuse was a lot more common than we even knew. But as children, we only know what we know in our own situation. And I think now, I feel like COVID was a collective healing. After that collective healing and people are gravitating more towards therapy, we're learning that more and more people actually had more trauma in their childhood than they realized, but they thought it was normal. So in the studio, a lot of times people will say, oh, I had a normal childhood. And then as I get to know them and their story more, I'm like, that actually wasn't normal. But I think you don't know, you don't know that it's not normal. And there's not a lot of people, in my opinion, that I've come across that were raised with a really nurturing, loving environment. We're learning that a lot of the programming was based in control and manipulation and gaslighting, and even something so simple as children. When a child cries, the parent says, you're okay, or like, big boys don't cry, big girls don't cry. So we're learning that from a very early age, we were taught to suppress our emotions, and that's not a perfect childhood. So we're learning more and more that there is a lot of reparenting that can be done to really help us be emotionally mature individuals.
True.
Yeah, and if you add in, physical abuse or any kind of physical trauma, it's even worse. So I'm glad that you are doing the work.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when was your first time attending a men's group?
It was probably, I'm 43 years old now, so it was probably about 10 years ago. It was in New York City. A friend of mine who was a yoga teacher, very successful yoga teacher, not that that has anything to do with the men's group, but he basically invited me. I just love the rawness of it all. I feel like, this might be a big generalization, but I feel like for people who are heterosexual, I feel like when the opposite sex is in the room, things get held back. Like I feel like, oh, I can't say that because it's too aggressive, she'll think that's aggressive, or if I say that guy over there who I think is cute will think I'm a nag, and I think people hold back. And I've always been very much in favor of people of the same gender, getting together, because it takes out distractions, it allows you to be raw, allows you to be real, and I think people say a lot of stuff that had there been the opposite gender in the room, they would not feel comfortable to do. So yeah, there's an openness and rawness that drew me to it all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've tried to put men's groups together at my studio, but obviously a man's not going to feel comfortable to say anything in front of me. But I did have a male practitioner once. We tried to get a group together, but it never really took off. And I think that it's just not known that there are safe healing spaces for men. So if someone's listening that's like, what is a men's group? Like, what does that even look like? Like, what do you do? How would you break it to a man that's like never heard of any type of men's group?
Well, I guess so. The last one I went to was called The Lighthouse. It's in St. Petersburg at Roots to Crown, if anybody knows the neighborhood or wants to drop in. And so it started out, which I really, really loved it, but the group started out with a sage cleaning. So right from the beginning, you're in a new energy. I mean, most people don't ever sage, if ever. So you're already together in a clean new environment. So that's right from the get-go, there's a feeling of togetherness. So I was able to just get into like not being able to make peace with the ignorance around me. It was very, how would I say? It just felt like in that space, it was very felt. I mean, I feel like sometimes when you're just driving down the street with your buddy or your friends, you might open up about something, but there's music playing, there's people outside the car walking around, there's this and that. In the men's group, you're very much together, you're in your own space that's insulated, which this particular group did very well. So yeah.
What I hear you saying is it's a controlled environment that allows you to be fully present with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And fully felt in whatever you have to share.
I think that we all want to be seen and heard and felt, and I think that there's a lot of programming that men have, which is what we're trying to overcome, especially by starting this conversation where men feel like they have to suck it up. And like I was saying in the beginning, even from a young child, you're told like, big boys don't cry, be a man. And so that sends the message that my feelings are not acceptable. It's not okay to be vulnerable. It's not okay to feel these things. I have to suck it up and just keep going. So we're really breaking down that outdated programming. So what would you say is an apprehension that men have with going into groups like this? Or did you witness anyone a little hesitant to open up?
Well, yeah, because you're opening up about very, very deep feelings that you haven't told anybody. One of the gentlemen there was talking about how he doesn't think his relationship's going to work out, So I think that the apprehension would be feeling small. I feel like right now in our society, and this is a huge generalization, right now professional athletes, big, tall, 7 feet tall, professional athletes, physical strength, are kind of overvalued, I would say. Overvalued, and not that we don't need physical strength, build buildings and put out fires, and it's great. But as men, I think that we have this seed planted in us that you have to be as strong and almost powerful, almost kind of dominating, which this is where the male toxicity starts. I think it starts there and so I think that when men enter spaces where they open up, there's this fear of not being the strong man, being seen as weak, being seen as less than, being seen as not good enough. And I I think that men's groups really get rid of the whole not being good enough. It's like we're all here, we're all suffering. I mean, I don't want to use the word suffering. We're all going.
A lot of people are though these days. Like, it's true. It's true, and we're taught to mask that because, especially with social media, it looks like everyone else is doing good. So sometimes it feels like, why am I the only one suffering? You know, a lot of people internalize that. So I think that's valid.
Yeah, and if you like look at our society, like 9 times out of 10, if you see anybody, this is not necessarily with men, you know, it's kind of anybody, but if you say, hi, how are you doing? People in America, especially in America, will always be like, I'm great, yeah, perfect, like the sun's shining. Mm-hmm. It's like, I feel like there's also this pressure to be perfect in our country, like, you know, you've got a good car, you've got good income, you're in a nice neighborhood, and, so I feel like the apprehension is just like the image that like getting over, like you're not going to be a star athlete. We all can't be Michael Jordan. We all can't drive a Range Rover. We're all just human beings. Yeah. And I think that's where the apprehension is people don't realize they can just be human. Yeah. They can just be soft. It's not overly feminine to be sensitive, to express feelings. It's perfectly normal.
I totally agree, and I love that there are spaces where men can be vulnerable, and it really is outdated programming that teaches us that a man being vulnerable is weak. It's not weak. Like we are human beings, and you know, your feelings are valid just as much as women's feelings are valid. So creating more spaces where men can be present with each other and hold a safe space for each other's feelings. I love that. What would you say is the difference between a man's group and therapy? Have you ever tried like traditional talk therapy?
Oh yeah. I'm glad this came up. This is something I really wanted to get into. So yes, I was, like I said, very early age, like just, you know, traumatized. I hate to use that word because there's so many levels of trauma, but yes, I was traumatized. I was very introverted. I'm a big fan of community over seeking a professional or a specialist. So with I was speaking to a therapist very early because my mom was concerned, like, he doesn't do his homework, there must be something wrong. And then one of my teachers was like, oh yeah, he definitely has ADD. Turns out we went to a doctor, and I think everyone has ADD, but yes, right away I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed as ADD. So the difference between therapy and a group is that I'm a big fan of community, and I feel like when there's one person and they're seen as an expert, you know, they have this many years of education, this many years of experience as a professional, it's pretty normal, but at least I did. I think I took more heed in everything they have to say. I feel like you have a less objective opinion speaking only to a therapist, only to one person. You're only getting one opinion back. Whereas with the community, you have last time we had 10 guys in the group, which was pretty big. And you get different perspectives. I feel like you get more degrees of empathy because more people have stories to relate to you. There's also an age difference. Like, I was a kid speaking to therapists, and these guys were 40, minimum 40. So there's just a lot more in common in a men's group. You're getting more perspectives. I feel like it's easier to be more vulnerable with a few people rather than one person. That could just be me. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of community. And if you look at even traditionally, how people met, either with friendship or, settling with partners, was in general, it was a community thing. You went to church and that's how you met your wife. You, played basketball or there was some kind of club or interest, a book club. I feel like communities is how people came together before all this swiping right and all this crap.
Yeah.
It was all about community, and I think that men's groups really bring that out.
Yeah. Do you feel like in therapy you're I don't know if judged is the right word, but sometimes people feel judged by their therapist, because I've heard people say like they lie to their therapist, or they don't, obviously they don't feel comfortable opening up to everything, but when you have peer support and they're like, we're in this together, like I'm going through it too, does that feel more comforting?
I would say yes. I do think that, like I said, there is the whole, PhD plaque on the wall or title of life coach, which I'm sure that there are great life. I'm not saying that they're not great life coaches or great therapists, but it does create. I almost hate to use this word, but I feel like there's almost a power dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying for this person's wisdom. You're only getting their viewpoint back. So, yeah, I guess there is a little bit of a imbalance in the relationship, or there can be.
So what would you say are some benefits that come out of being part of a men's group? Like, how has it reflected in your professional life, and how has it reflected in your romantic life?
Well, right now I am in a serious relationship. Like I said, I'm 43. This is the first relationship I've ever had living with somebody. It's been awesome. And this was something that I guess is normal. It's a normal part of life. But for me, was opening up to somebody, given the childhood I had, being vulnerable beyond 3 months was extremely difficult for me. There was just a lot of like the programming, and my mom was a type A personality to the core. So she was always like, don't date, don't be after girls. There's always, you need to be working on your school. You need to be getting a job. You need to be like getting an internship. There's always more to do. So I had this like programming of there's always more to do, and then I had like the shadow of being afraid to open up. So just being in a relationship right now where I'm living with somebody, everything's going beautiful, it probably would not have come as easily or as smoothly without the brothership, without getting things off my back, without being able to hear other people's stories. And you hear what I love about the groups is what I found is like when you share something, like even though you think like, oh, no one would ever have this situation, or my situation's so weird, like it's funny, there's always like one or two people who are like, dude, I know exactly what you're saying, like I've totally felt this, I've totally been through this. So I would say being in a strong, healthy relationship for me was a huge accomplishment. As far as work, I guess it makes me more patient as a person, like I said, I get annoyed with people's ignorance or their, not being so whatever, but yeah, made me more patient, more open.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. So what would you say are some of the biggest things that you see men struggle with in today's society?
Okay, I think that the digitalization of everything is really throwing everything off. Because we already are coming from a paradigm where you're not supposed to heal, there's nothing to heal from because we're men, right? We're coming from that paradigm as it is. Men don't have emotions that they need to speak about. Men don't need to heal because strong men don't need to do that. So we're coming from that already, which has left a lot of men wounded and unhealed for their whole life. Like it's not an exaggeration that the world is full of man-childs, and I hate to say that. It comes from generations of not healing, not being, the paradigm that I was saying that we're coming from. So we're already coming from that. Plus now there's this digitalization of everything. So people don't go to church, they don't join, a book club or whatever, kind of groups to meet people. It's like, oh, let me do it real quick and easy on this thing. I'll just swipe and I'll find somebody, and I don't even have to go to a party. I can just, real quick and easy. So I guess the convenience and the widespreadness of digitalization is creating a lot of problems for men.
Yes.
I feel like it's become harder. It's become harder for men to meet a woman because, like, I feel like it's a very small amount of men who get swiped on. Like, I guess I'm going from my own perspectives. I haven't done like big studies on this, but I think it like puts a small amount of men at the top who get all the swipes, and then because you're just looking at appearances and height and, oh, that guy's got a pink shirt on or whatever, like, you're going on bullshit. And this is how people are choosing people. So it's become a paradigm of not healing, and then a paradigm of digitalization. And I think that right now there's just a big wedge between men and women. I feel like there's very few, even the men and women who are in a relationship, there's very few who are having healthy relationships. I just think there's a big divide in the dating world. And I think men are really struggling to, how do I get in? How do I beat the 7 foot tall rich guys on this app? And it's, I really believe that, like, success or failure is accumulation of things. So when you're failing over and over, and you know, that's what I think these apps are kind of made for, is for people to fail and keep staying on them. I think when you fail over and over, it becomes, what you're facing becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger mountain. And I think that a lot of men right now are feeling really isolated, really rejected, really alone, really confused. There's a lack of self-love amongst men. And yeah, I think it's just a combination of society and what we're coming from, that men are really, really feeling distant, I think, from the female gender, yeah.
Yeah. What are some ways, in your opinion, that we can start to minimize that wedge, or like bridge the gap?
Men healing, getting together, getting those emotions out. Like, it's okay if you were beat up as a kid. You know, your little brother, your big brother used to, you know, give you wedgies. It's okay, dude. Like, you know, like, whatever you're gone through, I think men just need to realize it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. Just open up, get it out there, because there's people who relate. There's people who know where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think that so many men suppress some of the things that they go through. I think women are more comfortable sharing their trauma, sharing their experiences, and men just like bottle it all up and suppress it, and it's not healthy. So I do love that there are more spaces where men can talk about what they've gone through and know that they're not alone. And when they're able to express it amongst other men, that creates an internal safety to where, well, maybe now I can express it to my partner. And you know, there's certain things that I think men are just not comfortable opening up to a woman about, where I feel like women are more open about a lot of things, in my experience. And so if there's safety in the relationship where two individuals can be completely vulnerable with each other, I feel like that's going to create that depth and intimacy that we're all craving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think the men's groups are amazing, and I'm obviously an advocate for it, which is why I wanted to have you on the show. So thank you for sharing vulnerably. And yeah, I hope that this creates a wave of more men that are like, you know what, let me find a men's group in my town, in my area. I will say, definitely being selective and careful, because there are toxic groups as well. I don't know if you've heard of Unplugged Alpha.
No.
But it's a men's group. I'm glad you have it. It's a men's group that's actually very toxic. It's like, if a woman is attractive, you gotta like beat her down, and like not beat her down physically, but like take her down a notch. It's very toxic, very, very toxic. So any man that's listening, definitely be mindful of the group that you seek out, and understand the values of the person that is facilitating, because there are a lot of misogynistic groups out there, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for something where There's emotional intelligence and emotional safety. So that's important. So if you could speak to a man that is navigating the challenges of today's society, what is a message you would want to send him?
You're never alone and you're never stuck. Whatever you're going through will end eventually. It's going to end a lot smoother for you. If, let's say if you're going through pain, if you're going through suffering, loneliness, whatever you're going through, the quicker you face it, the more easily you'll get through it. And I think men just need to realize that there is a way. I mean, the days of suck it up and be a man and just have a shot, you'll be fine, like that's done. Like I don't even know who's believing that right now, but it's bullshit. There are men who can relate to everything that you're going through. There are men who are open to hearing you. There are spaces that are clean, which are holistic, healthy, where you can get this off your back. I feel like it's huge for self-confidence. Like when you heal, when you feel good as a person, you present differently. Like you just sound different, you look different, you seem like you have something going for you. Yeah, just know that there's guys there. I highly recommend, the last group I went to, it's called Lighthouse. For anyone who's in St. Pete or around St. Pete, it's at the Roots to Crown Center. The leader Bryce is someone who I full-heartedly respect, like very real guy. Just know, guys, it's there. I mean, you're a solution to whatever you're going through, like whatever you want to achieve, whatever pain you need to process. There are many, many avenues for that. I highly recommend Lighthouse Men's Group for that.
Yeah. So, in your own journey, what is something that you look forward to working through or navigating or overcoming in your own personal journey?
Okay, I would say my own ego. I would love to, we all have an ego. I mean, I'm definitely not a narcissist. Do I do things that are narcissistic? Hell yeah, I do. I know it. So just overcoming that, it's not about being the most spiritual. It's not about who meditated the most. It's not about who's been to more men's meetings. It's not about who's done ayahuasca. It's just about finding love for yourself. It's not about battling an ego to be better than this guy. So that probably is something I struggle with. Sometimes I do compare myself to others. I do feel like I'm more or less. What's the question? I'm sorry, I do this.
Your own personal journey.
Oh yeah, okay. So I think my journey would just be to humble myself, to get over myself, and even in the bad ways, like not only being all vain and stuff, but sometimes we can be egotistical and beating ourselves up, or I know better than that. Why would I do that? That was so stupid. How did I do it again? Like, I just want all the negative chatter and all the ego bullshit to just subside. I know it'll always be there. The shadow is always there. It's not. You just gotta temper it. And so I guess tempering my ego, getting over my bullshit, getting over beating myself up, is probably the most personal change that is happening and that I see happening.
Yeah. I would love to share my take on what you just said. So we live in a very narcissistic society. We are also realizing, like I said earlier, that a lot of our programming was based in control and manipulation. And like, what is narcissism? It's control and manipulation. So we live in a very narcissistic society. And the app that I have coming out is called Healthy Love. If someone is trying to control you, if someone's gaslighting you, that's not healthy love. And within the Healthy Love app, I have the section Shadow Work for Men and also Inner Child Healing. because our ego, I say this all the time, our ego is not necessarily a bad thing. It was developed to protect our sensitive parts, our inner child. And so when we can go through the process of reparenting ourselves, and when we reparent ourselves, it will give our inner child a little bit of strength. It's not like this like sensitive, vulnerable part that the ego has to come in and protect, because we're establishing that inner safety. So when you have that inner safety, the ego doesn't feel the need to poke out his chest as much. And so my thought is that inner child healing, shadow work, that is going to help navigate that ego. And when you say you want to stop beating yourself up, if you think about what you shared about your story, being beat up as a child, you're repeating the same exact pattern from your childhood. So if you can go and reparent your inner child, then it will eliminate that pattern of beating yourself up, you know? So it really is a vicious cycle that shadow work and inner child healing will help you get off that cycle. So I love that you shared that, because that's exactly the purpose of my app. And when you can establish that self-love with your inner child, and life is still going to happen. We're never fully healed, right? Because people always think, I thought I healed this. We're never fully healed, but going through the process of inner child healing teaches you patterns. So when you find yourself in that self-critical or self-sabotage mode, you have the tools to then be like, okay, I have to have some self-compassion. Let me nurture my inner child. Anytime we feel triggered, it's a sore spot from usually our past that we're attaching to our present. But if we know, okay, I'm feeling this way because, then we can offer compassion to that past version of ourselves, so we're not as reactive in the moment, right? So it's really just adapting the tools to navigate some of the stuff from our childhoods.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So patting myself on the back for my app. And side note, the Healthy Love Healing app is available on iOS, so definitely go download it. The link is in the show notes. But I love, selfishly, I love hearing that I'm like right on point with what I created for men, because it's hard. I definitely see things from a woman's perspective, but I've been doing this work for a really long time, and most of my clientele are women, but I'm like, men desperately need a safe space to heal as well. And I can't do a men's group because I'm a female, but if there's someone who is listening to me and they're like, well, how do I do this inner child healing that you're always talking about? They do have access now to do it just right from their phone. There's meditations, there are journal prompts, and it will change your life. Like, it will change your life. It will help with confidence, like you said, opening up to your partner, feeling better as a man, because you know that being vulnerable isn't necessarily weak. So making peace and having acceptance around the fact that, you know, as a child, when you were told, be a man, big boys don't cry, or men don't cry, that was broken programming. You know, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have emotions. And when you find that acceptance for yourself, it is going to open up a whole entire world.
Right.
Yeah. So, I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thing you would want to share with anyone listening?
I think that visualization is key, especially for the inner child work. I mean, just kind of seeing yourself as a different person. I remember when I was a baby, I was extremely happy. Like, people loved holding me because I was just the happiest, giggliest baby. And I remember I saw a picture with my grandfather, the same person who used to, you know, abuse me. I remember I saw a picture when I was really little. So at that time, there was no reason to be mad at me. And I was just the happiest little baby, and even my grandfather was happy. And I think might just me, but I think visualization works. For me, just seeing my grandfather happy, seeing me as a happy baby, I mean, that on so many levels, just that image has allowed me to, just sort of heal. And I would say, especially with the inner child stuff, visualization is the key.
So thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been absolutely amazing. I think that what you shared is going to be very powerful, and you are helping eliminate that wedge that is between men and women right now. And every time a man shows up and does the work, that is helping overcome the challenges that we are facing in today's society with dating apps, with social media, with overcoming the outdated programming. So I'm super grateful for any man that shows up and does the work, and I hope that he has inspired you to go seek a men's group in your area. And if you are someone who has an online men's group, because people listen to this podcast all around the world. So if you are not in Florida, we're in Tampa Bay. If you're not in the Tampa Bay area and you are seeking a men's group, if you have a men's group that is online, virtual, definitely reach out to me, because I would love to add that as a resource in the show notes. So you can find me on social media, Instagram at Niajae, Niajae, or you can email me directly at contact@niajae.com. So thank you again for being here, and thank you for doing the work.
Thank you for appreciating it. Thank you for your appreciation, and thank you for seeing me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.